How good is Ted Levine? Pretty damn good. I guess you haven't seen the movie.
No,
This is the first time.
yeah.
Is there anything you want to say? It's cool. You like it? Yeah.
It looked cold.
Here.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you come over this way a little bit?
Okay. I feel like I'm in a karaoke bar. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Any questions people have about the movie?
Shout it out.
The young girl that you used, she's not an actress. How'd you pick her?
This is her first movie. Yeah, we found her in Oklahoma. We just did a sort of national hunt, and she was just really strong in that first tape that she sent. A lot of actors at that age tend to overact, or they'll do something just sort of very generic. She underplayed everything, and she just made really strong choices, and that's what that's why she jumped out to me. But
Seen the movie?
she saw it. We screened it in New Orleans a couple months ago, and she and her mom drove up for that, or over for that. And she's since been cast in an NBC sitcom, Sean Saves the World. She played Sean Hayes' daughter in that, and then she's in a new film that comes out, I believe, in the fall called Captain Fantastic. She plays Viggo Mortensen's daughter. So we're hoping she's kind of a rising star. That would help us.
Where
Any other
did you
questions?
film
Yeah.
this?
What's that?
Where was it filmed?
Oh, it was filmed in Southern Illinois.
Really?
Yeah, close to the border with Kentucky.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, near Paducah, near where the confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers meet.
It's actually Marion, Illinois.
Marion,
Yes.
Illinois. Yeah,
Yes.
that's where we. The Lake of Egypt. Everything down there is
Yes.
Egyptian themed. It's really like Ramsey's Lounge, King Tut's Grocer. Yes, ma'am.
That's a pretty dark film. I'm wondering why Mr. Levine would appeal to you to do it.
The script and the story, and the location. I kind of got a formula for things about, talked to Hunter and read the script and the location, and those three things were up there, and yeah, so it was the story and the character. I thought he was kind of a unique sort of guy, and I'm a big fan of westerns, so this was a Midwestern.
And I remember you called me after we had sent the script, and you said we were kind of talking, and then you said, "Oh, is Rick Lefevre? Is that his name?"
Oh yeah, stunt guy. Yeah,
Stunt
the
guy.
other thing was I was in Chicago a long time, and there was a little bit of crossover between the crew people that I'd worked with before, and so that was nice.
But funny enough, I mean, that was what sold you. As soon as I said,
You said Rick
Rick
Lefevre was
Lefevre's
doing
doing it, he goes, "All right, I'll do it. If Rick's doing it, I'll do it." And Rick didn't do the movie. So when he showed up, we said, "Well, sorry, Rick's not here, but that's probably the least of your worries at this point." It's the coldest winter in like the last 50 years here in Southern Illinois. Yeah.
Apart from like creepiness factor or whatever, your use of like meat and blood, even for I guess, can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all to set the tone. I mean, a lot of the influences for this film were 70s era films, where there's not a lot of like gore, there's not a lot of blood and violence. It's all the kind of the build up, and so all of those things it's creating a sense of dread without actually having without actually seeing the deputy's throat slit, without seeing a lot of the violence. It's all sort of building to a sense of violence. So that's what that was a part of.
How long did it take to shoot?
Well, we shot for like 4 weeks in January, and then we it's brutal. We did like 6 days on, 2 days off, and then we went back in August or July and shot the summer scenes. And then in the fall, we shot the underwater stuff in Los Angeles. So it was kind of almost over the course of a year that everything was shot. And then the home movies that you guys are watching on the
That was pretty
projector.
effective.
Yeah, that was all stuff that we shot in L.A. just guerrilla style. Me and the Swede, the cinematographer, went out
Right.
with a big 16mm camera, hiding from the park rangers and people like that, just stealing shots. And that was my cameo. Yeah, I was in that.
You were in the back.
I was in the back.
Yeah, you were
I was in the hat.
talking about
You
the
were in
fence.
the hat.
Yeah.
I stole his hat, the hat that the character wore.
Oh yeah.
I was looking for hats, and Hunter was wearing this hat. I go,
That's the cool hat.
It was.
Any upcoming projects?
me?
All of you.
Yeah, I got some stuff in the works. I got a TV show I'm going to work on. Actually,
John Sayles, he's entering the television world, which is pretty cool. With a little show with John Hawkes, and that'll be fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. When's that coming out?
I don't know.
Oh, have you
I
shot it?
haven't shot it yet. I probably shouldn't say anything.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I'm working on another script right now that takes place in the oil fields of North Dakota. It's a modern day crime western. It's kind of a lawless boomtown there right now, so it's set against that backdrop. But it takes place on an Indian reservation. So we'll see what happens with that. What's that?
Sure, like a big little location.
Yeah, that one's not going to be any fun either.
It'll be a lot.
In retrospect, it's fun.
Absolutely.
How many movies have you made?
Me?
Yeah.
This is my second feature film, and I've done a bunch, shorts and things like that.
Well, first movie is called The Hungry Bull that we shot in Hunters, my hometown, in 2005. Another one of the coldest winters on record. Something about winter and cold and very crappy shooting conditions Hunter likes for some reason.
But I got to tell you, Hunter has a sense of humor. You cut a lot of it out. There was a lot of funny stuff in this movie. It wasn't.
Yeah. I know, it is regrettable. There's about 45 minutes of footage that we excised, sadly. And, part of it was there's a tone that we're sort of creating, and then once you sort of break that, it can be hard to bring it back. And the other thing was, I think if this had been a TV miniseries, we could have gone in, because it goes into different tangential storylines with the parents, how they're grieving, the father's having an affair with Jake's school teacher. There's also the deputy was a cross-dresser, and he was having an affair with a man in a diaper. There's a lot of stuff.
Some funny stuff
Really-
wasn't in that movie.
Really funny stuff, but again, it was like the core of the story was the grandfather and the granddaughter, that relationship. So I just wanted to focus the story around that, and everything else was stripped away. And what you have to do for a narrative feature, it's a TV show. You can take the time to delve more into the other characters. Yes,
Did you
ma'am.
re-edit it as Dig Two Graves, the comedy?
Well, maybe, this could actually be a franchise. Dig 3 graves, dig 4 graves to infinity. This is the new Saw franchise. But I would like to put some of that stuff up on the web at some point, because it is pretty wild stuff.
Well, when we shot the Byron and Arlen scene, we were up already filming for 27 hours, and then 4 of us shooting. I think we were half drunk and just
Delirious. And his brother is in a diaper, and I look over and he's sitting there he's naked except for this diaper, and he's trying to pin the diaper to his brother's groin.
Yeah, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
The things we do for art, right?
Right.
So I don't do horror films. I just can't. And I'm from the Midwest, and I've hunted with my father-in-law. And if I had known it was a horror film, I would have come in, and I almost left twice. Because, but it was the love, and it was the title that pulled me in. I'm Croatian, the Serbs and the Croats, and the Palestinians, and So I came in for the title, and then it's the relationship that I kept praying was going to save the day, and so I managed to stay. So you might consider that if you market it too much like a horror thing, because that's what the genre had said it was, but I don't know, it was deeper than that. So.
Yeah, I don't consider it a horror film personally. I think that it has aspects of horror. I think that's probably outdated, unfortunately.
Okay, good.
But when I'm talking, I call it a thriller, you know, like a gothic thriller, a mystery thriller.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, we played in Sedona about a week ago, and I got pretty nervous when we screened there because I looked out and it was just like all sweet old ladies. And I was like, oh boy, you know. And I had so many people come up to me after and say, wow, I don't like this kind of movie, but I really like this one. I think there were only about 10 people that walked out, so that's not bad. And if there's not a few walking out, then I take offense to that because I'm not doing my job. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a sweet old lady, and I sponsored your film.
Oh.
Don't typecast us.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, I've been.
And I also don't generally like horror movies or even thrillers, but I loved the relationship between. Plus, Ted is a local actor. For those of you who don't know, lives in San Luis Obispo County, right?
That's right.
Right. So we have to support our own talent.
Well, thank you for sponsoring this. Yes, we really appreciate that. Anybody else? I was going to say something. I forget now.
That's all right.
Yeah. What do you remember about the shoot? Anything besides it being
It was
freezing?
cold. It was cold. And there was some production things that weren't as smooth. I mean, independent films, you have to go from, you know, there was an experienced crew. Some of folks, you know, some people were very experienced, but, you know, you get out there and you rely heavily on people to take care of you, you know. So you're standing out there in your underwear and your bathrobe in the snow, and nobody's like bringing you a coat. I remember that. I did develop a reputation as being difficult.
Oh, I wouldn't say
Yeah,
that.
no, I was.
Only the best actors usually are. I mean, but it was a very brutal shoot, and there's just no doubt about it. What we tried to accomplish, I had somebody do a breakdown, a producer early on, and she was like, "You're making a $10 million movie here," and we were $4.5 million short of that. Or no, excuse me, $9.5 million short of that.
How much did it cost?
It was about 600.
Really?
Yeah. So this is, and that seems like kind of a lot, especially today. But like when you're doing a double period film, and you've got a child actor, and you're shooting at night, and you're shooting in the middle of nowhere, and you've got animals. And
ambitious.
it's very ambitious.
No, there was a guy who, the biologist who.
Yeah.
They needed a deer carcass for that deal for when they shot the deer. And,
That was the first day.
Yeah. And on the way, somebody hit a deer on the highway.
Ah,
And
that
it
was
wasn't our crew.
Another car, not
Another car, nobody in the crew, but the crew guy was right there, picked up this carcass off the road. It was still warm, hauled it to the set, and we had a deer carcass.
Yeah.
The gut and skin, and do that whole thing.
Yeah, because the deer carcass that he had gotten ahead of
Yeah,
time.
it was frozen.
It's frozen, yeah.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Couldn't
It
move
was
it.
like totally.
And that was the girl, Sammy's very first shot of the movie was her gutting the deer. Day one, she arrived on set. She gutted the deer. She shot that rifle, and she had to tear up in that emotional scene with you.
Yeah, she was remarkable.
That was day one.
With no reference. She was
Yeah.
looking at a white sheet.
Looking at a white sheet.
And she had to run down a dry creek bed with boulders this big without twisting an ankle at full gait.
She had to do deer like it was the first time.
Ted, are you able to just watch the story and forget the days you were shooting, or that day was cold, or whatever? Can you
Oh,
get
it's
involved
interesting
in the
because I
story?
haven't had a real distance from this, and I only saw a little bit of it for the ADR work that I did. So I did have a bit. I was able to look at it objectively. You know, I usually can't, but this I had enough distance from that I was able to kind of follow it. It's hard to try to remember know things that got shot and think about sequence. And sometimes I wish I'd been involved in the editing.
What do you mean?
No, I just look at it and I go, wait, she's wearing, I get picayune about stuff, you know, like she was wearing the necklace in one scene, and I had taken it and I said, well, how did she get that back on? So I was trying to remember the sequence of the story and what choices you made in terms of cutting the story together.
Yeah. I mean, it's been simplified too.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
I have a question about the necklace. I thought she was a little too smart to wear the necklace accidentally. So did she want her grandfather to see it? she had stolen it from him. So
Right.
now he's going to see that she was involved with these characters. So
I
Did you like it?
well, I know it confused me because I thought, no, she must want him to know because she really doesn't want to go through with this whole thing. And
Right.
that's one way to interpret it.
'Cause it
You
wasn't on
can't
purpose then.
interpret it as she's stupid.
I had that thinking in my mind during the character when she comes to the house with the blood on her face. Why didn't she wash the blood off her face? Well, you know, that she was sort of wanting him to be involved in this in a sort of
Yeah.
like a childish way.
asking for help in a way without actually asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I remember we actually got into a long discussion about that moment while the clock was ticking.
Yes, the clock was ticking.
You know, and that's the other unfortunate part about independent cinema is you don't have the time to really sit down and hash it out and figure it out. But you know, it worked. I think. Yeah.
Just wanted to comment on some really nice effective use of sound throughout, which you know you don't always see to that effect maybe sometimes in a film like this. And I really nice. I don't know if you worked with. I noticed a credit name up there, PJ. I don't know if that's the.
PK.
Sorry, was it?
PK.
PK, right?
Yeah. PK Hooker was the sound supervisor.
Yeah. Did you work
Yeah,
with
he did the sound on a friend of mine's film, and I saw it at AFI Fest a few years ago. So I reached out to him, and he's the sound effects editor on all Michael Bay's movies.
Oh.
So he's used to working on some pretty top level stuff, and this was a chance for him to do something more creative, where he'd have more artistic expression, as opposed to just Michael Bay hammering him over the head, do this. So it was a really fun collaborative process to work with the whole sound team, and sound is something that I emphasize strongly in my work. So, like when I was in the script stage, I met with the sound designer, and we talked about, well, how can we utilize sound to tell the story? How can we use it to get the audience inside Jake's head and have them experience the world as she experiences it? So, I think that's a big mistake that indie filmmakers especially make, is they say, well, we're just going to get good sound. And then once the film is picture locked, then they start to think about how can we use sound creatively. But at that point, it's too late. It's got to be built into the fabric of the production. Yeah. So like people do storyboards and pre-visualizations with the set designer and the cinematographer. I also do like a pre-sound process.
Nice. Yeah, it showed.
Where did you get the story?
It just kind of evolved over time. It started off with just the 1970s storyline, the girl wrestling with this, ambiguous choice, and it was sort of like in the tradition of the Shakespearean witches from Macbeth. The three guys are kind of trickster characters, and then ultimately I decided I wanted to give them a concrete reason to mess with the girl. So that's when I built the backstory in the 1940s to give them an impetus for the revenge.
Well done. So you really wrote it then, huh?
Yeah.
Well, actually, the story you and Joe O'Donnell came up with when you were in Rhode Island getting drunk.
Yeah.
You just decided to talk about this little girl who
Right.
had made this horrible choice.
Right.
That's what developed.
Yeah.
Drinking.
That's where all the great ideas come from.
Right.
And how did you come up with her name and the boy's name?
Oh, that's a good question, because initially it was a boy. And as we started the casting process, I realized very quickly that the boys at that age just weren't as interesting as the girls. So as we were bringing in girls to audition for the Willie character, they were just so much better. So I just flopped the genders and was too lazy to change the name. So I was stuck with Jake. I'm like, oh, well, it's short for Jacqueline. Yeah, that works. And it plays into her character. She's kind of a tomboy. So it ultimately worked. But yeah, it was just, Jake was supposed to be a boy originally.
Did you find the houses, did you find them or did you build them?
They were all found. I went down there and camped for about 6 weeks and just drove around and happened to find that house in the Trail of Tears National Park. I was driving by, I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, whoa, what was that? I pulled back around, and I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere, and it was a hunting shack. And the problem was these guys didn't live there, so and there's no way to contact them to get permission, so I just had to keep driving back there to see if they were there. And after the 6th or 7th time, I showed up, and they were actually there. They'd killed a deer, and they were gutting it when I showed up. These really tough-looking dudes, blood, all over the place. And I walk up there, and they go, "We've been watching you." They had a camera set up, so I'd go over there and peer through the windows and stuff, and they had caught it all on camera. But they let us shoot there, and then I said, "Well, can we burn it down when we're done?" And they said, "Hell no! It's been in our family for like 120 years." So we built the interior in a warehouse, and all that fire is mostly real, and it's augmented with some CGI, and then the outside of the house burned was all CGI. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do these days. Yeah.
So now, how did you pick Illinois? Because I've jumped into quarries with my brother, and I've gone to that park, and I was just sitting there like, ugh. So how
In Bourbon Springs? Yeah, it's a diving school now. You're gonna take diving lessons. But we found it because I'm from Wisconsin originally, and I wrote the story for Wisconsin, but they don't have any tax incentives, or they're not very good. So our producers were like, "We got to shoot this in Illinois to take advantage." And so I was driving around Illinois, and then a friend of a friend was like, "You got to go to Southern Illinois because it is wild down there." They call it the driftless zone. So the glaciers didn't pass through, so it's just really gnarly and rocky, and they have swamps and hills, and it's scary. It's all hillbillies and hippies down there, and they coexist through their mutual love of cannabis.
And what was nice too is all the locations were within an hour radius. When Hunter and I were looking for locations in Wisconsin, we would have had to have crisscrossed the state, and the producer said he had control of the checkbook.
Oh, talking about finding the house, on more than one occasion, trying to get to location with one of the kids and their freaking iPhones and their GPS deal, they're like, "Well, it says it's right here." And I go, "No, it's back there. You're supposed to turn back there by that big tree." "But the GPS says..." And we would not get, I was late for work a number of times because somebody had more faith in their iPhone than they did with their own eyes looking around at the freaking, rocks and whatnot that we live in.
And here I thought you were a diva the whole time,
No. I was late because the kid was obsessed with his phone.
Oh yeah, Charles, man.
Charles.
Oh, God, he was the worst driver. I refused. When the van would come and I'd see Charles driving, I'd say, "Charles, get out of the seat. I'm driving. I've been up for 26 hours. I don't care. I'm driving."
Oh, he had 3 accidents with the van.
Right?
Yeah,
There were a lot of adventures down there.
Grip truck nearly toppled over.
Oh yeah. On the
Got
muddy
stuck
road.
in the mud. It was like at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, everybody had to hump all the stuff up the hill.
Yeah. There's a lot of wild tales. If you come have a beer with us, we'll tell you more.
All right.
Anybody else? All right, well, hey, thanks everybody for coming out. And again, I just want to say real quick, we really appreciate if you like the movie, and if you hate the movie, tell your friends, Facebook, Twitter, sign up for the email list. It's just really hard to get distribution these days, so we really rely on word of mouth and all of you helping us out. So, and thanks again for coming out.
Tell all your friends that we'll be showing on Sunday at 1 p.m. So,
And don't forget to vote and leave your ballots as you exit.
Get a quick photo.